Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome listeners to episode 75 of the Declutter Hub podcast. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
Before we get started with the main part of the podcast, I'd like to respond to some questions people have been asking us about our members area. Just to give you an idea of the kind of things we've been doing, lots of our members are working through our kitchen course at the moment and are seeing some great results. And we've also guided our members through a paperwork challenge, and our members have decluttered and organized all their random stacks of paper. So if you're still struggling with your clutter in March and all your New Year's resolutions have not worked, come and think of joining our members area and have a look on members.declutterhub.com. If you have any questions, please let us know. Now, we get asked a lot, where do you start? I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know where to start. And we always say start small. So in today's podcast, Leslie and I are going to chat about things you can declutter immediately. Leslie?
Oh, yeah, that's a really nice idea, isn't it? Because we say start small, but now we're going to start really small. And we're actually right in the middle of doing that in our 40 days, 40 items challenge in the Declutter Hub community. So basically what that challenge is, if you've not seen it, is that you declutter one item per day from your house. So the same principle. So what we thought we'd do is talk about that on the podcast as well, just in case people haven't done the 40 days, 40 items challenge. So they can either join in or it can give them a little bit of inspiration of some of the things that they can choose.
Yes, I know. And we do love our 40 days, 40 items challenge, don't we? I mean, we go live in the Facebook group, I think like every day or as much as we can, showing what we're decluttering ourselves as well.
And I think that's the thing. So for me, I'd like to say that it was pre-planned, but literally I wake up that morning and think, right, what can I declutter today? So it just shows you that it can be spontaneous. Obviously, as you probably imagine, Ingrid and I don't have lots and lots of clutter in our houses, but there's always something that you can get rid of because we bring things in. And this is the thing, if we buy things and bring things into our house, something in principle then needs to go to accommodate that. And so there's always this churning of stuff. Something comes in, something goes out, something comes in, something goes out. And that's the only way that you can keep things under control. Mm-hmm. So what we thought we'd talk about today is just random things that are super, super easy to declutter from your house, that are just no-brainer things that you can declutter from your house, but nevertheless, they still happen to hang around for a while.
I think there's some sort of myth that you can just declutter once in your life and that you're done. But I'm like, we declutter all the time, Leslie. We are the perfect examples of constantly trying to think, okay, what's the next thing I haven't used, I haven't loved, I don't need anymore? Have I brought something else in that can replace this item? So that's why we love doing the 40 days, 40 item challenge as well, don't we?
I mean, any of the challenges that we do, so the 40 days, 40 items is a nice, easy one for us. Sometimes when we write the challenges, I know that I need to tackle that area. It gives me an opportunity to tackle it. One of the things that people say to us all the time is, we like Ingrid and Leslie because they've got loads of clutter in their house too. So I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it keeps it real, doesn't it? And that's the case. You know, I buy things. I say that all the time. My family buy things, bring things in, so something has to go. So that's what we're talking about. Nice, easy peasy things to do. So everyone's going to get something out of this. You might not have all of these things in your house, but I can bet my bottom dollar you'll have a few of them. So number one on our list, and I think this is quite an interesting thing. I mean, we're going to put a disclaimer in here straight away. Even though we say these things are easy, we know that certain things are difficult for certain people. So for some of these things, they are no-brainers to the majority of people, but some people have got emotional attachments to things. So some things might be difficult for some people and not for others. So the first one on our list is dead plants and flowers. So how many of you have got plants that are past their best, flowers that you've been bought that should have been thrown away but are still sitting there in a vase with a kind of yellow kind of liquid underneath them and mouldy sides? It's just not a great look in your house, and it really brings the mood of the house down. So for me, dead plants and flowers need to be dealt with straight away and discarded. They can go, presumably, I think, Yes, certainly the plants can go into your green bin. I'm not sure about the soil. I think might have to. Do you have to knock the soil off? I'm not sure.
No.
Maybe not. Do you not? Can you put soil in your green bin? Right. Okay. So dead plants and flowers all can go in your green bin. I don't know about you, Ingrid, but I'm absolutely terrible at keeping plants and, to be fair, looking after flowers.
I'm not too bad, to be honest with you, but I don't have that many. So I have a couple that I try to kind of keep alive. And I do, I mean, because I'm from Holland, I just love flowers. So I regularly buy myself flowers this time of year. The tulips are amazing. And I love fresh flowers. But after about a week and a half, 2 weeks, I know that I'm going to need to have a look in either, if half of them are still in relatively good condition, take out the ones that have gone, or kind of go, you know what, 80 or 95% is gone. Now they all need to go. So, but I do enjoy it. And just to say, we have a brown bin here, Leslie, for not a green bin.
Oh.
I know. We have a brown bin, and we actually have to separate out our garden and plant waste from our food waste. We can't put that together. So we have a separate bin for our food waste and another one for garden waste. So what I do is when I help clients and in my own house as well, if I do have dead flowers, I put them in my brown bin. Or when there's plants, I take the plastic casing off, and that can go into plastic recycling, and then the flowers go in. But I make sure I take like the ticket out and maybe a card and stuff like that. I try to kind of really do that properly, because otherwise things get contaminated, obviously.
Yeah, this is what's really quite difficult, actually. We talk about barriers all the time, and actually recycling and knowing what you can put where and into which bin is really tricky. So even Ingrid and I, when we're writing courses and things like that, there was something yesterday where Ingrid said to me, oh, and that can go into plastic recycling. Now up here, the only thing that can go into plastic recycling is plastic bottles. You can't put other types of plastic. So right, even within the UK, every single town has probably got different colour bins, different rules for recycling, different things can be recycled, because we're all managed by different organisations. So whenever we talk about recycling, please check what it's like in your local area and don't follow our advice, basically, because it could be completely wrong. And obviously other parts of the world we're not familiar. And so it's tricky, isn't it? It really is tricky to get it right. So it's no wonder that people really struggle with recycling and things get contaminated. But anyway, number one on the list, dead plants and flowers. Do yourself a favour and get rid of those straight away.
Yeah, for sure. And immediately you feel better. And maybe your reward for doing some decluttering in your house can be to buy yourself a nice bunch of flowers so you can enjoy some fresh flowers in your house, because I think it cheers up a house always enormously. Now,
until they die, and then you've got to throw them away again.
Yeah, but that's the cycle of flowers, you know. You can't, that's part of life. And what goes in must go out at some point. Old newspapers, Leslie.
Yes.
That's the next thing, I think.
I'm very rigid on my newspapers, I'm not going to lie. I have one newspaper that comes in every week, which is the free newspaper, which I do read because it's local. It's got local news in it. So I am interested in that, and I wouldn't read that news any other way, perhaps. And so I literally keep the newspaper. I keep it on my work surface. It's something that I read when I'm having my breakfast in the morning, and then what's it going to take, 10 minutes to go through it. I'm not reading every single article fully, just to make sure there's nothing that I've missed and it's straight in the recycling. But there are lots of people who have lots of newspapers hanging around that they've not read yet, that they've not got around to reading, that they want to keep, that they're keeping for somebody else in the family. And sometimes these newspapers can become really overwhelming. And we say this through experience, because newspapers are something that we get rid of a lot of when we're decluttering with clients, don't we, Ingrid?
Oh yeah. You know, you find them everywhere in the home or next to a sofa where people read them, and there's like copies of 6 weeks ago, and you can't keep up. You know, there's one coming every day or every week, and it's just something that it's fleeting. So the best way just is to recycle it.
Yeah, and newspapers and magazines are supposed to be something transient. They're not like books. They're supposed to be something that you read and that you devour and then you get rid of. Do you know something?
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be things that hang around. One little tip, really, if you have a newspaper that's got something in that you want to keep for a specific reason, write on it as soon as it comes in that you want to keep that, so that you definitely know that that's something to be kept and not something that's going to get discarded. Because that's the kind of thing that where people get into a bit of a panic and then they keep more because they're not sure what's inside it. Or I need to just double check which one it was that had Joseph in it last week, for example. So if you know that one of your children or something is in a newspaper, just make sure you write that on the top so it doesn't inadvertently go missing.
Yeah, good point. Next one on our list is outdated medicines.
Yeah, and it should be easy, shouldn't it? And
Yes.
it will be easy. She said,
But it's hard. It's hard.
we're trying to find things that are easier. Then with everything, we're like, oh, actually, but it's quite hard, isn't it? So no, for most people, outdated medicines is a no-brainer. You can go through your medicines if you've got them in some kind of order fairly reasonably. Most people have got medicines broadly together with a few scattered around in bedside tables, but most people do have one kind of holding area for them. If you've got more complex medical needs and have got lots and lots of medication, then this is going to be a bigger job. But if you have just got sort of standard medical needs, whatever those might be, with a standard amount of medicine, go through your medicine thing and discard the ones that are out of date. Obviously, remembering that if it's prescription medication, then it needs to go back to the pharmacy to be recycled.
Yes, very, very important. And every pharmacy here in the UK must accept your bag if you bring in a bag with discarded medicine. Don't bring the boxes and the leaflets and all that. Just bring the medication itself in the strips or in the bottles. And also make sure that you don't put any sharps in your bag with your discarded medication. They need to be put separately in a sharps bag. But that is normally not a difficult one to do. And it kind of clears out. And you can see exactly then as well how much you currently have, and if there's anything missing from your current stack. And while you're at the pharmacy, you think, oh, you know what, I actually need to get some paracetamol. I've nearly run out. Then you can actually use that opportunity to immediately buy some new, and then you're sorted again. Leslie, next on our list then.
Out of date food. So food either in your fridge, your freezer, or your cupboard or pantry that has gone out of date. So this might be depending on how you're going to challenge yourself. So what we've said is things you can declutter immediately. You are going to dictate what this challenge looks like for you. So it might be, right, okay, I'm going to do a quick thing. I'm going to do 15 things. And I'm going to get rid of one item out of each of these categories. Or you might go a little bit further and say, well, actually, I've got 5 or 6 medicines that can go. And so it might be more. But you look at that. So actually, out-of-date food could be a bigger job, because that means really going through everything in your food cupboard, which is quite a big job for some people. Or it could be, actually, I'm just going to look through my tins, or I'm just going to look through my fridge, or I'm just going to look through my freezer, or something like that. So it doesn't have to be a full declutter of your kitchen. It just needs to be, try and put your hands on a couple of things that look as if they're out of date. Now, for most people, the easy way to do that is in your fridge, quite often jars that have been with sauces and things like that. That's the one that tends to be out of date because they've only got 6 weeks or whatever, 2 weeks, 6 weeks worth of life, short lives on them. And quite often they just get left in there because we use half a jar and we keep the rest thinking that we're going to use it and we don't, and then it needs to get discarded. So a good place to start is definitely the jars and sauces and things like that in your fridge.
Yes, for sure. And I would say maybe have a look at your fruit bowl or your vegetable drawer, because sometimes, some potatoes keep hanging about. And you think, oh my gosh, how long were they in here? Or you look on your fruit bowl and you think, those apples look a bit shriveled. Maybe I should have eaten them 3 weeks ago. So that's also kind of an easier way just to clear the decks a little bit. You can then another time maybe look at really properly like dates on packets and things if you can see what you want to get rid of those. So yes, out-of-date food is for certain a category that we can tackle.
I feel like I want to say something actually completely going off topic. Well, we're not going off topic, but it's something that's popped into my head really. So I don't know what it's like with you in Holland, but when I was growing up in the sort of 70s, my mum used to get these massive bags of potatoes, like probably, I don't know, 30, I'm trying to think what that would be, but a huge sack of potatoes. They used to sit in the garage. They used to have all the dirt on them. Do you remember potatoes weren't like they are now? And they used to have all this dirt and they used to sit in the garage and they used to be in there for months. And now you get a bag of potatoes and it literally lasts 2 weeks, if that. And so what happened then that's not happening now with potatoes that it could be kept for months and months? So if anybody knows the answer to that, please do let me know, because it's always bothered me. Did you have that as well, Ingrid, or are you just thinking that I'm completely delusional and deranged?
I can't remember. I do remember my mum putting fruit on the fruit bowl, but I can't remember potatoes necessarily. But maybe I'm just thinking, and I'm really want to know the answer now as well. So, and listeners, if you know this, but I'm thinking maybe is the garage a lot cooler, and that we now keep potatoes in the house, which is a lot warmer? Is that maybe the reason, or maybe is it more pesticides probably that they use, or maybe because they wash all the dirt off?
It's probably a combination. It's probably the coolness. It's probably the fact that they're fairly protected by soil.
Yeah.
And that, you used to have to wash all the soil off your potatoes. Do you remember that, Ingrid, or did you? Maybe
No,
you had
can't
lots of
remember.
money and you had pre-washed potatoes as a child, and
We didn't have lots of money, I would tell you that.
So I don't know. It's always bothered me. I'm like, I mean, maybe it didn't, but it felt like my mum had potatoes. There was only 3 of us in the house because I'm an only child. So, like, it's not as if there was a family of 10. So these potatoes must have been there like 9 months, you know what I mean? But anyway, so if anybody knows about the potato situation, please do let us know. And I know that's a complete aside, but sometimes these things just pop into my head, as you know, Ingrid.
I know. I'm going to try and get us back on track here. So I'm going to move on. Odd socks that have been hanging around for ages. I mean, how many times do we find a bag or in the bottom of a sock drawer, all these random socks, or in a wash basket or in the laundry room or some random place? And I'm like, what's this? It's a bag with socks. And because people think they're going to find the other one, but it's like lids of Tupperware. Socks just disappear. We don't know where they go. We don't know this either. So don't ask us, where do our odd socks go? We don't know. But I think it's just one of these things. I think just socks have holes. I think other people maybe chuck them away instead of putting them into the rags for the charity shop. And then there's only one random sock, and then everybody's like, well, what happened to the other socks? So clear those out from your house. You're not going to find the other one. And if you do find the other one, the chances are 1 in 1,000, it's easier just to buy a new pair of socks.
So talking about odd socks then, so let's backtrack a little bit in terms of a system for odd socks. Yes, we all get odd socks knocking around all the time. I have a little odd sock pile in my laundry room, which I leave, and I will leave it for about a week, sitting on the side, waiting for its partner, just in case. Because sometimes things do go into the wash slightly out of sync, and you don't always put 2 socks together. I mean, my husband started balling socks up together and I'm like, but they're not going to wash properly, are they, if you ball them together, And so I'm like, please stop doing that. That's really annoying. So I know what he was trying to do. He was trying to not lose his socks. But anyway, I'll leave them for about a week. But if they're not going to turn up after a week and you've cleared all of your laundry baskets, they're gone, aren't they? And so every now and again, do yourself a favor and get rid of those odd socks. It's not going to be the end of the world if you lose a sock.
So the next thing I think on the list of things you can declutter immediately from your house is video cassettes and tape cassettes.
Right, Now, as you all know, Ingrid is Dutch and I'm English. Not that I speak perfect English by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like it's my personal mission to correct Ingrid, whose English is absolutely amazing, don't we all agree? But every now and again, she'll say something that creases me with laughter that she gets wrong. And I feel like I have to tell her what the right terminology is. And so before we came on air, we were talking about, she kept calling them tape cassettes. And I'm like, they're called cassette tapes. And so we've literally had 10 minutes of talking about videotape, video cassette, videotape cassettes, video cassette. It was just like confusing. So our next one is videos and cassette tapes. Ingrid.
Yes, I'm so confused now that I'm not going to say anything.
Right. So
anyway, they are from the 80s, I think, these cassettes. So let them go. Please, people, just let them go. The machines, do people really still have machines that can work them? I mean, I've let them go from my life. I love it. I'm so happy. There might be 1 or 2 still knocking about here, but they're not from me. They're probably from my husband.
Right, I'm going to try and break this down because I feel that it's more complicated than you're saying. Yeah,
I know.
I
know.
think
Of course it is. Of course it is.
It's not that I'm telling you off, but I just feel like there might be a little bit more complexity than you're making out.
Oh.
Okay, so videos. Let's take videos first. So videos come in two different guises, really, don't you? So you've got the pre-recorded video cassettes that are films and things like that. So you'll have kind of Cocktail and Pretty Woman and things like that from the 80s on videos. They should be very straightforward to get rid of because you will be able to find those streaming very, very easily. The ones that are more complicated are the ones that you've recorded yourself, and they're going to be split into two different things. There's going to be the things where you recorded off the TV, so the things that have got Coronation Street or whatever the current soap opera is. And then you've got things that are more complicated, things like weddings, holidays, christenings, births of babies, that kind of thing. Those are the ones that are gold dust that we've really got to watch out for. So the ones that are pre-recorded with films should be very, very straightforward to get rid of because you do not and will not ever use those. I believe there's no value in them, but don't quote me on that at all. We're kind of like 4 or 5 generations past that. And the nice thing about getting rid of video cassettes is that they free up loads and loads of space, because they're big and bulky. So videos, even if you're not ready to go through and you're a little bit nervous about the ones that you've worked with yourself, get rid of the ones that are pre-recorded in the first instance. The ones that have got weddings and christenings on, for the most part, will absolutely be annotated, or you will recognise them easily when you see them. So people get nervous about it. Don't be too nervous, but equally don't be too hasty, particularly if you're doing it for someone else. You need to be careful with that. Cassette tapes, similar. The problem with that is most again, you've got pre-recorded cassette tapes, you've got ones that you've taped on yourself. The problem is that for a lot of people, there's loads and loads of emotion wrapped up in those cassette tapes because they're things that people have put together for them. But it's very hard because you're probably never, ever going to listen to them again because the quality will be so poor compared to what you're used to listening to now. So think about it, video cassettes and see, I'm doing it now. Video, I can't even say it. Video cassettes and cassette tapes are definitely something that you can get rid of, but just go with a little bit of caution.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, if you do find that wedding video you've been hoping to find in your house, there are still companies that can actually put it on a DVD or a stick or a cloud for you. So then I think keep that to the side. But the pre-recorded ones, yes, for sure. Maybe you probably have them on DVD now, or you can stream them so easily. They're not difficult to get hold of anymore. So let's move on before we get all tangled up with our cassettes and our tapes and our videos and go into fits of laughter and can't even finish this. Can't even finish this recording. Right. Next thing, takeaway menus. They're probably somewhere lingering about, possibly in a kitchen drawer, possibly maybe in a drawer in your living room. I don't know where you order your takeaways. I'm not really sure where they're in your house, but you don't need to have takeaway menus for 25 restaurants in your town because you order the same thing probably every time anyway from the same restaurant, right?
Yeah, so you can probably find that information online. The place where they're quite often is in porches, behind letterboxes, in halls, things like that, piled on with the rest of the paperwork. Really, really offload those as soon as they come into the house. Obviously, if it's a replacement for one that you use all the time, change it. But other than that, as Ingrid says, 3 or 4, if any.
The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is dead batteries. That's, I think, not so very difficult to do, especially when you can see that they're all crusted over and they've been leaking and they've been hanging around in some random drawers. Those are, I think, something that you can declutter from your house immediately.
Yeah, you just need to get to a stage where you take them to the battery recycling, don't you? So hopefully the idea is that you've got somewhere that you keep all of your dead batteries together until such time as you then take them somewhere to recycle them responsibly. But that time needs to come at some point, doesn't it? Because otherwise they start to leak and things. And so, at least every few months you need to go and take those batteries to be recycled or gather them together around your house.
I think it's gotten a little bit easier to recycle batteries. I think in the past it was quite tricky. You had to kind of bring them to your recycling center and all of that. But now they've got a box in the library here. They've got a box in my local supermarket that I can drop them in. So I feel it's easier to do it than it was in the past. I don't know how about you, but it's not as hard work, I think, as it was years ago.
Yeah, people are definitely allowing you to be more responsible. And, batteries is definitely something that people really, really do just put in general waste. And it's so damaging to the environment. So if there's one thing that you learn from this podcast, its batteries definitely need to be recycled responsibly.
And to make it easier on yourself, if you kind of ended up with the whole thing of, yeah, these are new, these are old, why don't you just get a little Sharpie and a plastic container from a takeaway and just write on it dead batteries? So immediately when you know that something is empty, you can put it in the right container and kind of, instead of kind of flinging it in a cupboard and thinking, I'll do with it later. Just get an empty jar, an empty tin, an empty takeaway container, put a sticker on it, empty batteries, and then you kind of are making it easier for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And mine's in my drawer of useful things, as we like to call it. So I've got a little junk drawer in my kitchen that's quite organised, but it's got a few things, and that's where I keep my dead batteries.
Yeah, I've got a kind of a utility cupboard, and I've got a little recycling receptacle, and one of the things is a little battery box where my empty batteries goes in. So I completely separate the ones that are working and the ones that are not working. They're in two different places in my house.
Yeah.
To make sure that they don't get muddled up. Empty jars, Leslie.
Yeah, people know who they are, don't they? People who love to keep jars know who they are. So a lot of people will just recycle jars straight away. But if you're a baker, or if you make jams, or if you, what do they call it, pickle or anything like that. So it's really the cooks amongst us, cooks and bakers amongst us, will keep jars for different things, or crafters as well tend to keep jars. And then these jars tend to expand and expand and expand until someone's got 30, 40, 50 jars. And it can be completely overwhelming, the amount of jars that you're keeping. So if you've got too many jars, these can take up 2 cupboards worth of space. And so you need to really work out what you're going to do with them. Have you got an immediate plan to do something with them in the next few weeks? And if not, you need to start taking those numbers right down, and they can just go straight into the recycling. So it's really easy to do. So yeah, just really question whether or not you need all these empty jars.
At the moment, I don't have any empty jars in my house, but I know I can easily get a hold of one if I would need one, maybe like for jam or whatever. But I think it's all about the balance here. It's all about not having, like you said, 30 or 40, but maybe having 5 or 6. If you think I'm going to have a project that I'm going to need some jars for, you can use them. But having cupboards and cupboards full is just too much if you want to create some space in your house.
Yeah, it's just that compromise, isn't it? Find a compromise. What's more important to me, the empty jar or the space?
And then last but not least, Leslie, the bags for life.
Our favourite. So up and down the country, people have way, way too many bags for life and carrier bags, and we can get rid of some of those. And now we can get rid of them responsibly, which is nice. We can take carrier bags back to the supermarket and bags for life. I send bags for life. If there's an excess in a client's house of bags for life, they will go to the charity shop, but the charity shop will always use them. Fantastic. So we have done our top 10 of things you can declutter from your house. I think it'd be really useful for us to recap those as well really quickly. So number 1, dead plants and flowers. Number 2, old newspapers. Number 3, medicines that are out of date. Number 4, out of date food. I feel like I'm doing the charts, the top 40. Number 5, odd socks that have been hanging around for ages. Over to you, Ingrid, for number 6.
Do you do this specifically? Because I have to say videotapes and cassette tapes.
I didn't do it, but I'm so glad that I did.
Takeaway menus from restaurants, dead batteries, empty jars, and the last one, bags for life. So 10 things you can declutter from your house immediately. That's it, listeners, for this episode. Leslie, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, if people have liked the idea of getting rid of one thing a day or getting rid of a certain category, then there's still time. We're only on day 10, aren't we, of our 40 days, 40 items challenge. So by my reckoning, that means there's another 30 days to go. So we've got 30 days left of things you can declutter from your house. So please do come and join us. Ingrid and I are going live every day to show you what we are decluttering from our houses. We can find 40 items, which I'm sure we can. So that's it. Our top 10, and still another 30 to go if you do our 40 days, 40 items challenge.
Yes, listeners, we hope we have inspired you to look at these items and kind of think, you know what, I can indeed very easily declutter some of these, and I'm going to join in the challenge. So we'd love to see you in the Facebook group, the Declutter Hub community. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you'd like to get more tips and advice, please follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as @Declutter Hub. And of course, we'd love to see you in our Facebook group. We'd love to see you there. Don't forget our members area where we offer step-by-step online courses, live Q&A sessions, and a membership community. If you need some more support to achieve your goals and lead a more fulfilled life without stuff being the focus, the members area is just a thing. Have a look on members.declutterhub.com for more information. If you don't want to miss the next weekly episode, subscribe to the Declutter Hub podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher, and it will pop into your notifications each Friday. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration, and don't forget to tune in next week.